Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress. Only 24 days, 3.5 weeks till the match between Carlsen and Caruana for the World Championship will kick off on November 9th in London. On Chess to Impress we continue the countdown towards the great match, which is the 47th event in the history of the undisputed and official World Championship, by looking at the first 46 events. We're in the middle of the Kasparov-Karpov rivalry. Their third match was played in 1986. After losing the title in 1985, Karpov used his right to a rematch. The match was split between London and Leningrad. It was the first World Championship between two Soviet players to be conducted outside of the Soviet Union. The British used the occasion to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the first World Championship match between Wilhelm Steinitz and Johannes Zukertort in 1886. And I showed a game from that match in the first video of this series. Here we see both players, world champion Kasparov on the right in a nice white suit, and on the left the challenger Anatoly Karpov. As you can see, they still used an analog clock in those days, with a flag that falls when the time is up. The match started quite even. After 7 games the score was equal, but then Kasparov won Game 8, Game 14 and Game 16 to take a 3-point lead. The match looked over. In this video we're going to look at Game 17. Let's get into it. It was played on the 17th of September 1986. Kasparov is 9.5, 6.5 up in the match. In this game Karpov was playing white and Kasparov was playing black. d4 from the challenger and knight f6 from the world champion. c4, g6, knight c3, and we have another Grunfeld defense. Knight f3, bishop g7 and queen b3. This move against the Grunfeld had not been seen in the World Championship matches since Botvinnik against Petrosyan in 1963. The pawn on d5 is now attacked 3 times. And Kasparov takes on c4 to deal with that problem. Karpov takes back and castling. Karpov plays e4, has now a beautiful pawn center, and black is going to try and attack that center. First bishop g4, which is called the Smyslov variation. Bishop e3, knight back to d7, rook d1 and knight to c6. Karpov develops the bishop, the knight goes to b6 attacking the queen, and the queen goes forward to c5. Queen d6 offering a trade of queens, and e5, that was a new move in 1986 and had been introduced by Karpov 2 games earlier in game 15 of this match. That game ended in a draw. Queen takes c5, the queens are coming off the board, d takes and knight back to c8. This is an important moment. Knight d7 looks more logical, but that is not great because of h3, and if the bishop goes back to e6 there is knight g5. The whole problem for black is that this bishop has to keep protecting this knight because it's attacked by the rook. The variation continues. Knight d takes e5, knight takes e6, f takes e6, f4, knight back to f7 and rook d7, which is somewhat better for white. Another variation after knight d7 is again h3, and if then the bishop takes the knight, then white takes back with the g-pawn. Now this knight is hanging on d7, so knight d takes e5, but that doesn't work. Taking with the other knight runs into the same move, which is f4, and that wins a piece. This knight has no squares, no safe squares to go to. So that's why after d takes c5, Kasparov did not play knight to d7, which looks more logical, but he played knight c8. And it was David Bronstein, the World Championship challenger from 1951, who said that he was very surprised that Kasparov again entered this dubious line, like he had done in game 15, 2 games earlier. In game 15, Karpov had played knight b5, and that move is a bit rushed. Yes, it threatens to take on c7, but in the meantime his team had worked out a much better way to play, which was h3. Great move. Instead of knight b5. It sacrifices a pawn, but it forces this knight into a straitjacket, as Grandmaster Keen writes in his book on this match. Kasparov took, bishop takes, and bishop takes e5. A pawn in the bag for black. There was a rumor, writes Grandmaster Keen, that Kasparov's team had looked at this position on the morning of this game and had decided that taking with the bishop is better than taking with the knight. Bishop takes c6. And now it's important to see that taking on c3 with check is not good for black. B takes, and white dominates the dark squares. The bishop is stronger than the knight in this position. So after bishop takes c6, Kasparov took back. And now a very nice move from Karpov. Bishop d4, taking black's only active piece away from its best square. This is black's only good piece at the moment, and he's challenging that piece. Kasparov went to f4, and Karpov castled. Here Kasparov played a5 after 27 minutes of thought. A month later, in a tournament in the Netherlands, we saw Jan Timman play e5 against Karpov in this variation, and that game ended in a draw. But a5 was played in this game in the World Championship. Rook fe1, another nice move from Karpov to prevent that e5 move. That's now not possible because white is covering that square with two pieces. Kasparov plays a4. Rook e4, hitting the bishop. Bishop back to h6. And bishop e5, hitting this weak pawn. a3. In game 5 of this match, which Karpov also won, Kasparov also started running with his a-pawn in a difficult position. He tends to grab that pawn when he is in a difficult position. But Karpov doesn't mind about that pawn advancing. He just plays b3 to stop that pawn in its tracks. White has overwhelming compensation for the pawn he's down. Black's queenside pawns are weak. All these three pawns are weak. The knight on c8 is not really a knight, it's more like a horse. And Karpov also controls the only open file on the board with his rook. Knight a7, you have to try and bring this piece back into the game. And at least you're connecting your rooks this way. Rook d7. The culmination of Karpov's plan, writes Raymond Keen, whereby he will eventually pick up both c-pawns. His pieces are dominant, and even Kasparov's seconds had to admit that black's position is hopeless, and we've only played 23 moves. It's hopeless, especially against a master technician like Karpov is. Bishop c1 from Kasparov, and white has to play with care and attention. Not every move wins. For example, rook takes e7 is not the best, because then there's bishop b2. Rook takes c7. White keeps taking pawns, but that's a mistake, because of bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3, and then suddenly that knight gives a fork. Black wins an exchange here. So we have to be careful. After bishop c1, Karpov took on c7, bishop b2, and the nice move knight a4. Knight b5 hitting the rook, activating the knight. Rook takes c6, now both c-pawns are gone, and this pawn suddenly becomes a great asset for white. Rook fd8, rook b6 hitting the knight, rook d5. Now the bishop on e5 is attacked twice by black. Bishop back to g3 and knight c3, desperately looking for counterplay. Hitting the rook on e4. Karpov took the knight, bishop takes, and c6. Bishop d4, hitting the rook on b6, and rook b7. The c-pawn is unstoppable. It will cost Kasparov a rook, and Kasparov had seen enough, and after 31 moves he resigned this game. Karpov was 3 points down, but won game 17 and was now only 2 points down. 9.5, 7.5. Karpov had taken a big blow in game 16, and commentators said that it's only Karpov who can come back and play the next game like nothing happened. And this was a crushing victory for Karpov. And things went on. Karpov won game 18 with black, and he won game 19 with white, and suddenly the score was 9.5, 9.5. Great comeback from Karpov. But as you can see here from the table, 2 draws followed in games 20 and 21, and then Kasparov won the 22nd game with the white pieces. 2 more draws and Kasparov had retained the title, but only just. 12.5, 11.5, he won this match. But the KK rivalry was not finished by any means. It was already the next year that they played their 4th match for the world title, and I'll tell you about that one in the next video. I hope you are as excited as I am about the Carlsen-Caruana match, which is now very close, and I hope you will keep counting down towards that great match. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. If you like the video, if you like the series, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking that share button on YouTube. The link to the series is here. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.